In this screencast, we would like to present an overview of the ReQoL project. ReQoL is short for Recovering Quality of Life. The project is about developing a brief outcome measure of recovery of quality of life in mental health populations. The project team consists of Professor Michael Barkham, Professor John Brazier, who's the Chief Investigator of the project, Jill Carlton, Janice Connell, myself, Anju Kitruth, and Tom Ricketts. In terms of where we're moving in the NHS, the idea is to have a number of measures designed to assess the benefits of interventions. This includes measuring three things. First, user satisfaction by using a PREM, so that's a patient-reported experience measure, to measure clinical outcome using a clinician-reported outcome measure, and finally, what we're most interested in this project is a user outcome through a PROM, that's a patient-reported outcome measure. The demand for this project is supported by various parties, mainly at the government level. First, in the document No Health Without Mental Health, there is growing interest in measuring recovery from the point of view of the service user. This has been reiterated in a more recent document called Closing the Gap, published in January 2014. For some time now, there's been an NHS outcome framework across the board looking at quality of life and recovery. There are specific domains looking at these, and in the current document there are placeholders for a measure to look at quality of life and recovery, and there is mention of this work in this context. Next, in the context of introducing a currency in the area of mental health, so what used to be called payment by result, there is the need to collect a PROM, and various sites in the UK are currently piloting the short version of the Warwick-Edinburgh Wellbeing Scale to kick-start that process. So this is now pricing and currency. Finally, in assessing cost effectiveness, there are concerns around the use of EQ5D in measuring benefits in the area of mental health. Therefore, there needs to be a brief measure that can capture benefits of interventions in mental health. In terms of the rationale for developing a measure, there are three main points. First, traditionally, measures have focused on symptoms, for example, PHQ-9, and also they have been through clinical assessments, for example, HONOS. As mentioned before, there is an increasing interest in collecting PROMs, so that's patient-reported outcome measure. Second, in a recent report submitted to the Department of Health in 2013, Jed Boardman, Mike Slade and Jeff Shepherd mentioned that existing measures do not adequately capture the wide range of mental health conditions and severity. Finally, a measure is needed that adequately captures what matters to service users. Such concerns include those identified by Leamy and colleagues, and they are often referred to as CHIME, which stands for connectedness, hope, identity, meaning and purpose, and empowerment. In terms of what we mean by recovery and quality of life, the key aspects are: first, having user-focused outcomes as perceived by service users themselves. Secondly, capturing quality of life and not only symptoms, though of course we appreciate that symptoms can be dominant. Third, we want the measure to capture various aspects of quality of life and not just well-being. So therefore, the measure ought to be multi-dimensional. We also would like a measure that can be filled in at different points in time to assess recovery or lack thereof following interventions. The aim is therefore to develop a brief measure of recovery and quality of life of people with mental health problems. We anticipate that it will be used by adult mental health populations, and it will be suitable across all mental health populations, including common mental health problems, severe and complex, and psychotic disorders. So here we're talking about clusters 1 to 17. We are excluding dementia and learning disabilities. The measure will be used in a range of settings, so primary, secondary, and tertiary mental health services. The measure is primarily for self-completion, though we may go on to develop proxy versions or interview-based ones in the future. There will be a long version of the measure with 20 to 30 items, and for routine use there will be a shorter measure with a maximum of 10 items or 10 questions. Now I'd like to provide a few details about how the project will run. There are 3 governance groups. The first group is the scientific group, which consists of the core research team and 7 other members, who are Professor Mike Slade, Jed Boardman, Susan Haywood-Everett, Andrew Papadopoulos, Diana Rose, Dan Robotham, and Andrew Grundy. So here we've got a mixture of academics, clinicians, and expert users. The advisory group consists mainly of academics both in the UK and internationally, and of course expert users. The remit of the advisory group is to comment on the work after each stage of the project. The stakeholders group, which is by far the biggest group, consists of various parties in the area, and perhaps with more hands-on experience. So we've got academics, clinicians, policy makers from the Department of Health, NHS England, and Care Packages Pathway Programme, and also representatives from charities, think tanks, research bodies, and expert users. Members of the stakeholders group will also be asked to comment on various aspects of the project. The project is funded by the Department of Health, with the support from NIHR-funded Yorkshire and Humber Clark. This work formed parts of a work programme for the Policy Research Unit in Economic Evaluation of Health and Care Interventions, and this is a unit within the University of Sheffield and the University of York. So here, even though the Department of Health is funding this work, the views presented here and in various aspects of the project will be the views of the research team and the scientific group in the first instance. There are 5 main stages of the project. The first stage will involve the confirmation of themes for the measure, and this runs for 3 months until the end of April 2014. Stage 2 is where we generate a long list of items from existing measures and also from literature search, literature review, and interviews carried out in the work and reviewed in the work in stage 1. From August to October, we will be testing those items to see if they make sense to service users. So we'll be conducting focus groups and individual interviews to test the face and content validity of the long questionnaire. In stage 4A, we will ask service users to fill in the long measure to allow us to carry out analyzers to construct a short measure. In stage 4B, we expect the brief measure to be filled routinely in a number of NHS sites and in other settings across England. We will use this data to check the psychometric properties of the measure. We are hoping to get a measure by October 2015 at the latest. Stage 5 is the ultimate stage where we will obtain preferences of the general public so that this measure can be used to calculate quality adjusted life years, which is how health benefits are valued in assessing cost effectiveness of various interventions. Thank you.